Today is the first day of this June 1983 7-day retreat. And the title of the Koan that we will work on is Joshu's or Joshu's Joshu's 4 Gates. It is taken from the Blue Cliff record as translated by the brothers Cleary. Before starting with that, we'll say something about listening to a talk. Quite a number of people here who have not been to a retreat or not been to a retreat in a long time. And if you were at the last one, can you listen freshly? Or is there the thought, well, what she says now I've heard many times over, don't need to listen? One may not say this to oneself, but there is this feeling that prevents listening. I've heard this before. Which means memory is dominating the mind and body, which are not two. Listening to a talk, can it be other than our ordinary listening in which we follow words, remembered words and words that we will remember? Are we comparing what is said here with what one has heard someplace else, has heard somebody else say? If that takes place, then the mind is busy with comparing. It is an intellectual process, and what is said escapes. It is not attended to. It's quite important that as you sit down for talk to find a comfortable posture. In the course of this retreat you'll find out what is a comfortable posture for you. Maybe there is none. But we do have chairs. There's nothing embarrassing or shameful about sitting on a chair or bench with 5 cushions if we have them. I dare not count the amount that I'm using these days. It's not an exercise in sitting through pain. Actually, when there's a lot of pain, it's very difficult to listen, because the energies are absorbed in dealing with the pain. The knee hurts too much or the back, then change. And can you change very quietly, unobtrusively? A lot of people here sitting quite close to each other. Yet it's not impossible to change without disturbing, or to have someone next to one who is changing without being disturbed. If you are disturbed, usually it's such thoughts as, why do I have to sit next to someone who has to change posture so often? That thought itself is a great disturbance. And at that moment, there can be no listening to the talk. So whether the dog barks or the leaves rustle or the clothes rustle or the knees creak, can that be included in the listening without labeling it distraction? And yet it's a fact that the more quiet it is, the easier it is to listen. There's a very short dialogue between a Zen teacher, his Chinese name is Joshu, his Japanese translated name is Joshu, and a questioner, someone who came to him to ask him this question. A monk asked Joshu, "What is Joshu?" Joshu replied, "East gate, west gate, south gate, north gate." In reading the commentary, one finds out that Joshu is not only, or Joshu is not only the name of this teacher who was at that time maybe over 100 years old, very famous, but was also the name of the town near which he lived, or near which his monastery was located. And the monk asked, "What is Joshu?" And the response, East Gate, West Gate, North Gate, South Gate. Actually, in another longer version of the same interview, of the same dialogue, the monk said, "I wasn't asking about that Joshu. And Joshu said, "What Joshu were you asking about?" In the olden days, Zen work, teaching and learning often proceeded in this way, in dialogue, either among the monks themselves or some lay people too, or with a teacher, or teachers among each other. One may think they were testing who was tops, who won, and who would be the loser, but it's a very simplistic way of looking at it. If you observe your dialogues with each other, you will see that. One wants to win, one doesn't want to lose, or at least one doesn't want to be put down. One wants to be in the know. One wants to be someone who has an answer and dreads being lost, unfamiliar, saying, "I don't know," because that doesn't count for anything. It counts for inferiority very often. Or there's defensiveness in being asked or told something. No, I'm not like that. I'm like this. This all comes out in a dialogue. It's a defensiveness, offensiveness, hurt, and the immediate urgency or need to hurt back, maybe if not in a crude, then in a subtle way. And this is how, probably in the olden days, someone found a person to stay with, to live with, to become exposed to oneself. If there was a teacher who was not offended, who was not defensive, whose responses came out of an inner emptiness of self, Because if one is in relationship with someone where there is emptiness of self, one may see something in oneself. Self. Like being in the presence of a mirror, which reflects very honestly, directly, factually, what comes before it. Without anything extra. So here this question, what is Joshu? And the answer, gates. In every direction. Gates in every direction. No matter from where you approach it, there's an opening, there's a gate. It appears that the monk didn't get the profound meaning of this response because he wasn't looking at himself. He was continuing to test. Aren't you speaking about the city? The city apparently had 4 gates. Probably was a fact. In the morning, the gates of a city in these ancient times, they were opened. At night, they were closed to let no one in who didn't belong there, for defense. In the daytime, they were open for commerce, people coming to sell and buy, people leaving for the fields. Aren't you talking about that, the city with its gates? And he says, what Joshu were you talking of? We come to a place or to a teacher, place where the teacher works. Of course, we want to know something about the teacher, but usually we're carried away. The important thing becomes the teacher. And here this teacher says gates. How is one listening? Are all the gates open? North, east, south, west, up, down, left, right. Nothing to recoil from, nothing to defend, to brace against. And inwardly, how are you sitting this moment? How are we sitting? Feeling of the buttocks on the cushion, shins, knees touching, cushions or mat. That's there. Or is it? I've used words, but there's no need to use words. Is it there? There's a pain someplace in that area. Is it there? Simply? Undefended? Or is there a reaction immediately? I don't like that, I want to change it. It's bad for me, it's good for me. That's also there, the reaction. Comes most often when we name or label something. My old, well-known back pain, and then the reaction. I wish it would go away, or this is what's going to do in the course of the day, or the course of the retreat. Whereas in truth, you don't know. You know what's going to. You don't know what it's going to do. You don't even know what it is. Because the word back pain is not this here. What is it? What is it? Can you be in touch with it without knowing what it is, so you don't need to react at all? If you have already reacted, can it be dropped because it is reacting toward a word, a memory, and not the real thing? The real thing wants to be there, entered, plumbed, questioned, attended to, listened to, as it is. With no one manipulating. Speaking of the back, how is it? The shoulders, the neck, the head. Does one have a concrete image of how one is sitting or how one ought to be sitting? Some people sit very, very erect, and as it looks, quite tight and strained, as though there was an idea in that body, I ought to sit this way. It may not be very conscious, it may have been there for a long time, but it can come into awareness. Is one sitting according to an idea? And why is the idea there? If I sit in such and such a way as I've heard or read or other people have told me, then something good will happen to me. You don't know. Can one find a way of sitting in which no idea holds up the spine or keeps down the knees? No idea? No image? Is it possible? Just to be in touch with sitting as it comes, without ideas? This takes great openness and vulnerability. Vulnerable to the fear of really not knowing what's right and what's wrong. And having no idea to guide one. Just open and in touch what is there with what is there. Listening to the breathing. Can this happen without knowing what breathing is? I don't know what it is. No one knows. You can describe it on many different levels. But the description is not this. What is it? Not how should my breathing proceed. It should be regular, it should be deep, it should be yogic. Or there should be hardly any breathing. Then your breathing is compelled or obstructed by ideas. What is it? I have no idea about it. I don't know how to breathe. It's very upsetting to people often when starting to do this, if there's not rigid guidelines given. I don't know how to breathe. And yet breathing goes on most of the time. One is not attending anyways. One is dreaming about something, thinking, dialoguing in one's mind, or remembering pleasant things or unpleasant things, thinking of a future, what one is going to do. And all the while there's breathing going on. But it goes unattended because there is absorption in thoughts. If you wake up to that for one instant, that there's thinking, then where's the breathing? Wonder about it. And there it is. What is it? Is it possible to listen so open? It comes and goes on its own, with no one controlling it. If that happens for an instant, very likely the next instant is the thought, I'm doing pretty well. This was wonderful. Where is it gone now? Something just happened, it's gone. How can I get it back? And again, thinking taking over the mind and the body. Every thought is also manifested physically in the body. Some kind of a process, some kind of tension or agitation or stimulation or drain. Can you feel it? Without thinking it shouldn't be, I shouldn't have blown it. But just always be right here. Open. Not where you should have been a moment ago or where you want to be in the next few days. Everything a gate. A gate of not knowing, and therefore questioning, either who, what is it, what am I? Or just questioning without a word. But the state of mind is one of not knowing. and therefore attending, listening, as though for the very first time, born this instant, unburdened by memory? Is that possible? Listen. For an instant, maybe there's just a pure perception. And then, say immediately that's a car driving from this direction to that direction? Or is it just listening? Or is there further reaction? I don't like it. I wish we were at a quieter place. Because it always distracts me. My mind just follows that car along. So it does. Can you be open to that? And not judgmental? Realizing at the same time that the word car or the word what was that? I don't know. Is it noise? Or is it just the word isn't the thing. What is the real thing? When all the gates are open. When everything is an open gate. You may ask immediately, a gate to what? That's the wrong question. Because then you want to get someplace. You want to enter something. Become illumined or enlightened. And that's thoughts, memories, ideas for the future itself being ideas, thoughts, memories. But the wanting to enter, to get someplace is there, isn't it? One person said that. I wouldn't have come here. I didn't want something. All right, now you're here. What is wanting? Whatever brought you here got you here. You're here now. What is wanting if it arises with great force? Most of the time it's already triggered by the idea of what you want. There's no idea in the mind of something desirable, then there's no wanting. Then there's just sitting with what is. Open. East, west, north, south. But an idea pops in the mind, and then one sees oneself having that, being that, enjoying that, becoming that. And with this idea, the whole process of wanting starts and operates and gains in momentum, generating more ideas, and the ideas generate more wanting. Can you see that for yourself? And that wherever there's wanting, there's also a picture or an idea or an image of what you want, and seeing yourself with that. As that. You may ask, well, is it possible not to want anything? I don't know. It's again questioning into an idea. Rather plumb and question the wanting that is there, without reacting to it for or against, it's bad or it's a necessary part of this work. But what is it? Beside being triggered by ideas and spawning images and ideas, it's also very physical. It's an inner churning of a kind. Moving, a restlessness. Can one be in touch with it without condemning it or labeling it human nature? Just open. Let it be whatever it is. No one there to oppose it or defend it. No one there. No one there. Listen. Maybe this is what Joshu was saying when he said east gate, north, west, south gate. Only gates, nothing inside. No one there. No teacher, no student. Or am I talking ideally? I'm not. But you may think so. And make an ideal of the state of no one there. Then it may become a new identity to strive for. Or is there really no one there? Needs questioning and looking and attending to all the images we have of ourselves, all the different identities which give us a sense of belonging, a sense of security, being something in this utterly insecure, unstable, threatening and dangerous world. And yet the identity itself is unstable because it's a thought. A binding thought. In sitting a retreat, or just sitting, let's forget about the retreat, one does come in touch with these different identities. Does one question them? Where they come from, what they do, the consequences? And that there's no freedom as long as one is an image that needs defending, guarding, or nourishing. The image of a good listener, of a good sitter, an indomitable sitter. It's an image, it's an identity. Can you drop it? And not substitute it with another one immediately? Is it possible? To sit not knowing who one is, really not knowing? Having nothing to uphold one? Image-wise? Not being tied to anything? To nothing? If you say this is impossible, then for you it is impossible at that instant of saying that. But if you say I don't know, then the gate opens. Maybe we've been speaking more about identities that uphold one, that are cherished. But there's the other side of the coin, feeling that one is no good, a loser, unworthy, outright bad, having done so many bad things in the past, which always seem to overwhelm one as one sits down, wondering if one ever can expiate for all that. But that too is the operation of memory. Something that is over, has happened, is the past, and yet one carries it around and therefore does not attend to what one is right now. Or the instant there is attending right now, realizes there's tiredness or drowsiness, and then comes the thought, the other people are probably much less drowsy, much more alert, much more with it. Which is again comparison. You don't know where the other people are. The other people are you. You're not separate from them. What happens in one human being happens everywhere. We're not special. Special in our inadequacy or special in our superiority. These are all images. Can one face the pain of these feelings of inadequacy? There's physical pain about it. The pain of jealousy of other people who seem to have it, be successful in a relationship. And one always loses out to someone else. Can you feel the pain of that without just branding oneself as being such and such or so and so? That also is a way away from feeling directly. The fear of being no one special? Fear of maybe really being no one. One person said that. If all of this is thoughts, and I can feel these thoughts just the minute I utter them and put them into words, I realize that's really it. And the words aren't what you are. It's so limited, so limiting. Then there's nothing, this person said. And it usually brings with it a rush of anxiety. Or does it? If it brings a rush of anxiety and fear, then this nothing is a word. Because words trigger fears. When there is no word in the mind, there's no fear. There's only what is. And you face it. You're that. Painfully, joyfully, you're that. There's no distance from it. Fear is distance. The distance created by thinking about one's condition, past, present, and future. And then the reaction, what's this going to do to me? What's going to happen to me? How is this all going to end? These are all thoughts. Do you see that? Whereas what's really there is a pain that has never been felt, because it's always been labeled. It's just there. Feel it. Or fear that has always been escaped from. Never been plumbed, questioned, or attended to so thoroughly. Right to the bottom of it. Meaning no running away, no defense. An open gate, maybe a floodgate. Some people have said that in meetings. Sometimes I have a feeling if I open that gate, it's like a dam breaking. Well, let it break. One may be afraid one will be inundated, drowned. So, let it inundate. What is inundated are images of oneself, and ideas, and memories, and future aspirations, all thinking. What are you? East Gate, West Gate, North, South Gate. Either open or closed. If all the gates are closed, shut, is it possible to be open to that closedness? You see what I mean? To be open to the fact that when it's all closed up, not thinking I should be open now after this talk. Probably everybody else is open by now. never ideal states that are talked about. Where are you? Right now. Who? Or move? Or the breathing? Questioning? Or just attending? Not knowing? What's happening? You don't cling to words and pictures. We will end here for today.